ultimatum to Serbia, accusing it of complicity in the attack. Serbia's rejection of key demands led Austro-Hungary to declare war on July 28, 1914. Within days, Europe's complex web of alliances pulled the great powers into a full-scale war. Russian Tsar Nicholas II, feeling bound to protect Serbia as a fellow Slavic nation, ordered his forces to mobilize. Germany, aligned with Austria-Hungary, viewed Russia's mobilization as a direct threat and declared war on Russia on August 1. France, allied with Russia, soon found itself at war with Germany as well. Germany, anticipating a war on two fronts, swiftly enacted the Schlieffen Plan, a strategy that called for a rapid invasion of France through neutral Belgium to quickly knock France out of the war before turning east to face Russia. However, Germany's invasion of Belgium prompted Britain to declare war on Germany, citing a treaty obligation to protect Belgium's neutrality. Within weeks, Europe was engulfed in conflict. Millions of soldiers marched to war, their spirits buoyed by nationalistic fervor and the belief that the war would be over by Christmas. However, this optimism would soon be shattered by the grim realities of modern industrialized warfare. The first months of the war saw rapid and brutal clashes across Europe. Germany's advance into Belgium and northern France was slowed by fierce Belgian resistance at Liege and the valiant efforts of the British Expeditionary Force at Mons. Despite early setbacks, German forces pressed forward, nearing the outskirts of Paris. In a desperate bid to save the city, French and British forces launched a counterattack at the Marne, halting the German advance and forcing a retreat. This failed German offensive marked the end of mobile warfare in the West. Both sides began to dig in, constructing an extensive network of trenches stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border. Trench warfare, with its deadly machine guns, artillery, bombardments, and barbed wire, would come to define the Western Front. The promise of a quick war evaporated as soldiers settled into grueling static conflict. On the high seas, Britain leveraged its naval supremacy to impose a blockade on Germany, aiming to cripple its economy and force a surrender. In response, Germany deployed its submarines, or U-boats, launching a deadly new form of warfare that targeted Allied shipping, threatening Britain's command of the seas. World War I was not confined to Europe's battlefields. Fighting spread to the far reaches of the world, involving colonial forces and drawing in new participants. In Africa, German and Allied forces clashed as they sought to capture each other's colonies. In East Africa, Colonel von Lettow-Vorbeck led German forces in a highly effective guerrilla campaign, trying down large numbers of British troops despite being cut off from Germany. In the Pacific, Japan honored its treaty with Britain and declared war on Germany, seizing the German territories in China and the Pacific. Meanwhile, British, French, and colonial forces fought to secure control over German-held territories across the globe, demonstrating the war's reach and the imperial ambitions that fueled it. The Ottoman Empire, struggling to hold on to its vast territories, joined the Central Powers, declaring war in Russia. Turkish forces bombarded Russian ports in the Black Sea, and fierce fighting erupted in the Caucasus. The entry of the Ottoman Empire brought new fronts to the conflict, from the deserts of the Middle East to the rugged mountains of Eastern Europe. By 1915, the war had settled into a deadly settlement. Italy, swayed by promises of territorial gains, joined the Allies and launched a series of costly offensives against Austro-Hungarian positions along the Isonzo River. Despite heavy losses, the Italian army made little progress. In the Gallipoli campaign, Allied forces attempted to open a new front by attacking the Ottoman Empire through the Dardanelles. British, Australian, and New Zealand troops, ANZACs, landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula but faced fierce Turkish resistance. The campaign quickly bogged down, resulting in a costly and humiliating failure for the Allies. On the Western Front, Germany introduced a new horrifying weapon, poison gas. At the Second Battle of Ypres, German forces unleashed chlorine gas, causing panic and chaos among Allied troops. The use of chemical weapons marked a grim escalation in the war, as both sides developed new means to break the deadlock of trench warfare. The year 1916 witnessed two of the most brutal and symbolic battles of the war, Verdun and the Somme. In February, Germany launched an assault on the French fortress town of Verdun, opened to bleed France white through a strategy of attrition. For 10 months, French and German forces fought in a grinding, nightmarish battle that became a symbol of national endurance for France. By the end of the battle, both sides had suffered nearly 1 million casualties, and the front lines remained largely unchanged. In July, the Allies launched the Battle of the Somme to relieve pressure on Verdun and achieve a breakthrough on the Western Front. On the first day alone, the British Army suffered 57,000 casualties, the worst single day in its history. Despite initial hopes, the battle turned into another protracted slaughter, with trenches, mud, and barbed wire stymieing Allied advances. By November, the Allies had gained a mere 10 miles, at the cost of over 1 million casualties on both sides. These battles exemplified the futility and horror of World War I. The Western Front had become a vast killing field, where gains were measured in yards and paid for with thousands of lives. As the war dragged on, the impact on civilian populations grew increasingly severe. Naval blockades led to shortages of food and fuel in Germany, causing widespread hunger and unrest in Britain. The government introduced rationing and mobilized the entire economy for war production. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, replacing men who had gone to fight. The war also sparked social and political changes. In Russia, years of hardship and staggering military losses fueled discontent, leading to the February Revolution in 1917 and the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II. A provisional government took power, pledging to continue the war, but its authority quickly eroded as the war effort flattered and soldiers began deserting in droves. In the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire's brutal repression of ethnic Armenians led to what many historians regard as the first genocide of the 20th century. Over 1 million Armenians were systemically deported, starved, and murdered, a tragedy that remains a deeply continuous issue today. By 1917, the war's toll was pushing Europe's major powers to the brink of collapse. Germany, recognizing it, could not win a protracted conflict against the Allies' superior resources, gambled on unrestricted submarine warfare, hoping to cut off Britain's vital supply lines and force a surrender within 6 months. This decision, however, brought the United States into the war. The interception of the Zimmermann telegram, in which Germany encouraged Mexico to attack the United States if war broke out, further inflamed American public opinion. In April 1917, President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress to declare war on Germany, framing it as a fight to make the world safe for democracy. The entry of the United States brought fresh manpower and vast economic resources to the Allied cause, tipping the balance of power. In Russia, the war's strain finally broke the provisional government. In October 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power, promising to end Russia's involvement in the war. The subsequent Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in March 1918 saw Russia cede vast territories to Germany and its allies, freeing German troops to bolster the Western Front. With Russia out of the war, Germany launched a series of massive offensives on the Western Front in the spring of 1918, aiming to end the war before American forces could fully deploy. German stormtroopers, using new infiltration tactics, achieved stunning initial successes, breaking through Allied lines and pushing deep into France. However, the German advance eventually stalled, exhausted, out of supplies, and facing growing numbers of American troops. The German army's momentum slowed. In August 1918, the Allies launched a 100 days offensive, a coordinated series of attacks that decisively broke through German defenses. The Battle of Amiens marked the beginning of the end for Germany. Ludendorff would later call it the Black Day of the German army. Meanwhile, on other fronts, the Central Powers were unraveling. Bulgaria signed an armistice in September, followed by the Ottoman Empire in October, and Austria-Hungary in November. As revolution swept through Germany, the Kaiser abdicated and a new republic was proclaimed. On November 11, 1918, Germany signed an armistice, bringing an end to the fighting. The Paris Peace Conference convened in 1919 to negotiate the terms of peace. The resultant Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including significant territorial losses, military restrictions, and infamous war guilt. clause, which placed full responsibility for the war on Germans' shoulders. The treaty's punitive terms sowed deep resentment and would become a source of future conflict. The collapse of the Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires led to the creation of new nations across Europe and the Middle East, redrawing borders and setting the stage for further tensions in Asia. Japan's territorial gains at China's expense stirred anger and set the stage for future hostilities. The war had claimed the lives of over 9.5 million soldiers and 7 million civilians, leaving vast areas of empire in ruins. Old empires vanished, new nations were born, and the world was forever changed. The seeds of World War II were sown in the aftermath as economic hardship, political instability, and a thirst for revenge lingered across Europe. World War I was a conflict of unprecedented scale and destruction, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new era. More tumultuous century, it was supposed to have been a short, decisive war, but it became a prolonged and tragic struggle that reshaped nations and societies. The lessons of World War I, its honors, its futility, and its far-reaching consequences continue to resonate today as a reminder of the costs of war and the fragile nature of peace.